Welcome back. It's easy for many of us to see what is happening in Venezuela and tune out, to think it has no real effect on us here. But you would be wrong. It does matter. Not just because more than 200,000 Venezuelans are our neighbors here in South Florida, but also because what is happening there is just plain wrong. The people of Venezuela went to the polls last week, and according to both the press and international observers, the people voted overwhelmingly to get rid of Nicolas Maduro. On Thursday, the United States officially recognized the opposition candidate, Edmundo Gonzalez, won the election. Yet Maduro discarded the results and declared himself the victor. Late last week, I spoke to Raul Stolk, a director at the well-respected website Caracas Chronicles. There's been violence. There's been people have been imprisoned. I know in talking to folks, from Venezuela who are here, who have family there, they are heartbroken and devastated by they put so much hope into this year's round of election only to have it crushed. What's taking place on the streets in Venezuela now as we speak?
Again, it was a landslide win by González Urrutia. They have the means to prove that because they have the voting tallies that are issued when you close a voting center and that are given to voting witnesses that sign the tallies and they get a copy of those. So what the opposition did was they uploaded all those tallies to a website, and there you can see the results with proof.
But what's happening on the streets right now in terms of the violence and the arrests?
To take you to the streets, it's important to see the difference is almost 70-30. 70% González Urrutia and almost 30 Maduro. So it's a landslide win. It's the first time that Chavismo gets such a strong show of force against them. So obviously, the next morning, Caracas was dead. You couldn't see that there wasn't cars in the street. There was nothing. As the day progressed, you started hearing people, the classic cacerolazo, which is that they beat on pots and pans as a sign of protest, and those were stronger, in more popular low-income areas. And by noon, people started going out to protest, and they were very, they were straight up. They weren't very small gatherings. It started and it caught fire really quickly. They even there were even protests in front of the government palace, which is something that hadn't happened in years because we know that Chavista government violence is significant and strong, and protests started erupting everywhere. They started taking down Hugo Chavez statues. At least 6 on the first day were beheaded, and there were videos of people dragging the head of Chavez in motorbikes in the streets, and there was a significant amount of chaos. I think that on the first day, those protests took the government off guard, especially on the places that they were taking place, and second, the strength of those protests. So on the first day, there was some repression, but not a lot. But by yesterday, there were several reports of people being shot. At least I think that they were 12 confirmed people that were killed by either government forces, government security forces, or these armed groups that support the government.
I guess a lot of this will depend ultimately on where the military stands in terms of whether or not the military will continue to support Maduro, or whether or not they think the international pressure and everything that's being brought to bear on Venezuela makes it better for Maduro to leave. Is that a fair assessment, or is that too simple an understanding?
The sense in Venezuela, and because it always has been a little bit like that, and it always comes down to that, is that the military have the final word. Chavismo itself, the precedent is that they don't go back on their narratives. If they say they won, right now you see Colombia, Brazil, especially Brazil, Mexico, and the U.S. Pressuring for Maduro to show the results. Like the ideal outcome of that would be to say, "Oh yeah, we made a mistake, and Edmundo won," and that's not going to happen.
Is that likely?
No, no, no. They never go back on their narratives. In the end, the hopes of some people are in the fact that the armed forces are going to turn and say, "Okay, we're not going to let this stand anymore." The thing is that the armed forces are very much Chavista, and they have, while in the past they have helped in when the opposition has won elections. They have been kind of they have pressured the government to say, the opposition won. Here, they already didn't do that, and I don't see very likely that there's gonna be like a coup or something like that, because that's where we would be standing.
Let me
The
just ask
rumors
this.
in the street regarding the military, let me just add this, is that Padrino, who is the Minister of Defense, is getting a lot of pressure from mid-ranking officers, that they're getting pressure of the troops, that they're not happy with what they're doing, because they're Venezuelans, they have family, if you do the numbers, it's not 70%, but maybe 80% of Venezuelans hate Chavismo. So he must be getting a fair amount of pressure, but that doesn't mean that there's going to be either a break in the military or a break in the Chavista coalition, where the military is going to say, "No, we just got to get these things in order."
How devastating is this for Venezuelans to come this far, to put so much hope or faith, at least, in this election, only to be seeing it stolen from them and the repression intensify now against them? What is your impression of how the Venezuelan people are coping with this, and dealing with this? Because the ones I've spoken to here in Miami are just gutted by it. They're devastated. They're emotional. I talked to one woman who was almost in tears as she was talking about, the sense of hopelessness in some ways about all of this.
Yeah. Well, it's clearly demoralizing, but I think that most people kind of expected this outcome of the election day. The question is whether how is this going to end? So it's not so much as everything ended with Chavismo still in the election, but actually everything starts with Chavismo still in the election. Because I think that most people expected that the opposition was going to win, and most people expected that they were going to try to steal it. The thing is whether something can be done. So I always, in these conversations, I go back to what is different this time. Because for many, it's like deja vu. We've been here several times before. Sorry. So what is different right now is, first, the opposition actually has the evidence of the win. And second is the landslide. And the fact that you can prove that the vote was such, not only to prove to the international community that Venezuelans are against the regime, or that the Venezuelans voted for Edmundo, but for the people in Venezuela to know that they're not alone, that the person next to them is not someone who they have to watch their mouths because they're gonna just tell on them because they're from the opposition or anything. There is certainty that most likely the people around you, you know, feel the same way that you do, and it's something that Chavismo hasn't exactly dealt before, because they have been dealing with a polarized country for many years, where whether at some point it tilted toward the opposition, it was almost like equal forces.
What do you think happens at the end of the day?
As I said, this doesn't end with the elections; it's just starting. I think that the fact that it's so many people wanting them to leave, and Venezuelans realizing that it's so many people wanting them to leave, could be the start of something that can take, of a process that can take some time. I mean, this is not something that's going to be resolved in a week. Obviously, it would be ideal, but definitely, I think it's not. You know, it's not. We're not going to see the end of it either in a week. I think that this is, you know, there's a likelihood that this is the beginning of the end, but you know, it's very hard to determine a timeline for that.
We'll be right back after the break.